Boxing today, it seems like there's news breaking every single day. There's fights being announced almost every day, big fights at that. Boxing's in a good place. And sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but I find it a little bit difficult at times just to stay on top of everything between checking Twitter, checking boxing scene, going on BoxRec to see if there's anything announced. There's a lot to look for. There's a lot of platforms you need to go on. And if you look there on screen, you'll see today's sponsors, Boxing Showtimes. They've made an app that does it all for you. Look at that on screen. It shows you where you can get tickets. It gives you all the latest news. It gives you the tail of the tape. It gives you all the card details. It's going to give you details about Fury Usyk. It's going to give you details about Joshua Ngannou. It's also going to have a lot more little things thrown in there as well. The link is in the comment section. It's going to be pinned on this video and more besides soon enough. And not only that, in the comment section, there's also going to be a link, a G-Man promo, which means you can access a little bit more without ads. Now that, to quote Eddie Hearn, is a game changer. Now let's crack on with the video. Alright, so last week we got a snippet, a leaked snippet. We got a snippet of the Usyk Fury face-off. Now, I'm looking forward to seeing the full unedited version of that so we can really, give our 2 cents. I'm sure there's probably very good bits in it that we've missed or not had a chance to see. They'll more than likely release that in the next fortnight. Probably more so fight week. They normally tend to release those face-offs. It's going to be interesting to see the full one. But we take a little bit from what we seen last week. Again, it was only the roughly 12 minute long version of it. Again, we want to see the full unedited version. It's probably going to be over 20 minutes, so we'll get a bit more of a gauge as to what's going on. But what we saw was interesting. And obviously, the topic of Anthony Joshua came up, as you may know, in that face-off. And when the question was put by Steve Bunce to Tyson Fury, it was, well, when I beat Alexander Usyk, no, I don't have to fight him. Why? Because Usyk has already beaten Joshua twice. Now, I suspect, in fact, I'm pretty sure, this was recorded pre-Christmas and probably pre-Day of Reckoning. So they were probably envisioning that it would be a Wilder Joshua fight coming up early this year, which obviously isn't happening. Obviously, Deontay Wilder lost to Joe Parker. And now the Saudis are kind of pushing the winner of Fury Usyk to fight the winner of Ngannou Joshua. That seems to be the kind of road they're taking. But if Fury is serious about that, and if he does beat Alexander Usyk, you can't just turn around and say, well, because he beat Anthony Joshua and I beat him, means I don't have to fight him. That's not the way boxing works. It doesn't work like that. Just because you think a fighter might beat that guy, there's only one way to find out. They have to do it. You can't just say, well, I think he'll win, so we just have to fight him. It's like, no. Let's actually wait and see that. Where do you think upsets come from? We'd never have any upsets in boxing if that was the case. If it's a case of that guy is the favourite, he beats everybody, well, they don't always beat everyone. Ask Mike Tyson fans. No one in their right minds would ever have thought Buster Douglas could beat Mike Tyson. But I want to talk about this article here on Boxing Scene, which Antonio Tarver is talking about. So, you all know Antonio Tarver, former light heavyweight champion of the world, beat the great Roy Jones, amongst others. Very good fighter was Antonio Tarver in his prime. It says here that I'll actually go a little bit back further, okay? So, he does expect Joshua to get it done against Ngannou, but he isn't entirely sure how Fury Usyk will play out. This is what the article is saying here. It says, the former multi-time champion, wouldn't go into the X's and O's recently. Instead, he spent some time looking ahead. If Joshua and Fury take care of business, the next move would be to face each other. Tarver, though, doesn't like that idea. Interesting, he says. Sure, they can make loads of cash for it, but for Tarver, the boxing world shouldn't be interested. I think Fury beats Usyk. He don't got no reason to fight Joshua, Tarver explained. He says there's no need. So he don't got a reason to fight Joshua. I think he does. I think that for Tyson Fury and Joshua, that is the biggest fight that could be made in the UK, bar none. And I think that if you want to say you're the best heavyweight of this era, you got to beat some of the other heavyweights of this era. The Klitschko win is good. The Wilder wins are good. Dylan White win was good. But that's it. You got to look at the other people in the heavyweight division. it's really easy when these heavyweights lose for people to say, oh yeah, people thought that, Martin Bakoli could beat Tyson Fury. People thought Arslanbek Makhmudov, Frank Sanchez could beat Tyson Fury. Ha, look how crap they are. It's like, well, they're not in there with Fury. How do you know it's going to be the exact same? Just because you think Fury beats them all, that doesn't mean he does. To do that, you're giving him no reason to fight them. Because, oh, well, I think he's going to beat them all, so there's no need for him to fight. Well, you don't know that until they're actually in the ring on fight night. And I think that right now, we may be starting to see the beginning of the end of Tyson Fury. I think he will be much better against Alexander Usyk than he was against Francis Ngannou. But I don't think he has many more, how would you even call it? I don't think we'll get a performance like the Wilder rematch again. I think he can get somewhat close to that, but I think that it's maybe a bit unrealistic to get close to that. I mean, we got to bear in mind, right? We look back at that Wilder rematch like it wasn't that long ago. It was 4 years ago. I know it's a quick 4 years. It was still 4 years ago, right? A lot can change in 4 years, especially if you're someone like a Tyson Fury who, again, I've often said it, very impactful training, doesn't treat his body the best. There's alcohol, there's ballooning in weight, and don't even go there about, over the years. I mean, it's not like it's a recent thing that he's only started, getting a little bit heavy in between fights. He's been doing that his whole career. I mean, especially when he was out of the ring for those 2.5 years, he was crazy heavy. He was 400 pounds nearly. That will eventually catch up to you. Whereas someone like Alexander Usyk stays. Look, I think Usyk is probably not in his, he's definitely not in his athletic peak anymore. I think he still has plenty left in the tank, but he's not invincible either. And put it like this, Alexander Usyk against the top heavyweights, I don't think he beats them all. I think there's heavyweights there that could really cause Alexander Usyk serious problems. The same way that there's heavyweights who can cause Tyson Fury serious problems. I'd love to see Alexander Usyk and Fury fight the other contenders. To see. That's why they're the... What's the point in having a rankings? What's the point in having, any of these, final eliminator fights, this, that, and the other, if you're going to say, well, no one beats him, so we just need to fight them? Well, he hasn't beaten them. It's like when Anthony Joshua lost to Andy Ruiz in their first fight, and you had Deontay Wilder so happy that Joshua lost, acting as though he was the one who did it. And it's like, mate, one, you didn't do it. That's undisputed, potentially gone out the window. That's also the biggest payday of your career, gone out the window as well. And you're happy about that. I mean, I'd understand you being, over the moon if you went in there and you did it. But you didn't. It was Andy Ruiz. Why are you happy about that? So I don't understand that. I don't understand the way that people look upon these fights and they're like, oh, well, Fury beats them all or Usyk beats them all, so they don't need to fight. No, they do. They do. And with regards to Joshua Fury, I'd love to see that fight. If Fury wins, and you can tell Eddie Hearn is praying Fury wins, because whenever you hear him talk about Fury Usyk, it's like, if Joshua Fury, it's almost like he is just praying that it's Fury who comes out on top so they can try and do that fight. I'd like to see him fight Joshua. And if the fight is there, if it's ordered, I don't think it would be because he's not in any mandatory position. But Joshua is still a top heavyweight. Fight your contenders. You say you're the best in this era and you haven't beaten the other good fighters in this era. You haven't beaten the Joshua. As of right now, you've not beaten Alexander Usyk. You may very well beat him in a couple of weeks' time. Be a good win. But you haven't beaten the likes of Martin Bakoli. You haven't beaten the likes of a Frank Sanchez, etc. You haven't beaten even a Joe Parker. I know you and Joe Parker are never going to fight, but you can't just act as though, all right, Fury beats them all, so he doesn't need to fight. It don't work like that. It doesn't work like that, right? So that's my thoughts on it. In terms of what Tarver's saying, I always liked Tarver as a pundit, and he was a good... And actually, if you think about it like this, Tarver, actually, I have his box rec opened here. He should be... If by his logic, then, Fury doesn't need to fight Joshua, Roy Jones didn't need to fight Antonio Tarver, did he? Roy Jones, when he fought Tarver back in 2003, he had just beaten John Ruiz for the WBA heavyweight championship, right? He could have had a run at heavyweight, fought the likes of Evander Holyfield, who was probably past it at that point, was definitely past it at that point, and made more money at heavyweight. He came back down to fight Antonio Tarver. Bear in mind, you look at people like Eric Harding. I know Antonio Tarver avenged the loss in the rematch, but he lost to Eric Harding. In fact, actually, That win for Harden gave him a crack at Roy Jones. That was a very good performance by Roy Jones, as was all his performances at light heavyweight prior to the Tarver fight. Roy Jones could have just said, well, you lost to Eric Harden. Why should I fight you? I beat him easy. You lost to him. Yeah, you avenged it, but he still beat you. I don't need to fight you. So Antonio Tarver should be looking to get that fight. He should be saying, no, let's Joshua Fury, let's get it. Not, he doesn't need to this, that, and the other. No. The fight's there and it can be made. Let's make it. You want to say you're the best heavyweight of this era, of this generation? Fight some of the other guys who want to stake their claim to that as well. That's what I got to say on that. So it's going to be interesting to see the full version of those face-offs. It's also going to be interesting to see some recent press conferences coming up. If Joshua gets brought in, how Fury will react, and be interesting as well to see what Usyk would say. Because I don't know about you guys, but for me, the third fight between those two, I'm like, nah. If it happens, it happens. But I'm just kind of like, I've seen it twice. I've seen Usyk win twice. That style will always bother Anthony Joshua. I know a lot of his fans will be saying, I think that style, movers have always bothered Joshua. Go look at his amateur days. Look at Erislandy Savon. Just because, you go in there against Ottavalina Southpaw, who's a poor man's Alexander Usyk, and you look good, it doesn't mean you're beating Alexander Usyk. I mean, you got outboxed twice by the guy. One good performance doesn't mean all of a sudden now you're going to right the wrong as soon as it happens. If Joshua had an interim fight between the first Usyk fight and the second, and say he fought a pudding and he looked great, you'd have everyone saying, oh no, he can't lose this rematch. And then you go ahead and lose. So, yeah, I'm not really fussed about a third Alexander Usyk fight, but if the chance comes for Fury Joshua, I want to see it. Let me know your thoughts on Antonio Tarver had to say in the comments below. As for now, I'll leave it there. Hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like button. Peace.